For my Tech Trends report, I decided to analyze and test out a couple of open educational resources. The first tool I decided to test out is Google Classrooms. My district has been a Google Schools district for about 3 years, and this year we rolled out Gmail accounts to most of the students in the district. They have to turn in a permission slip first that shows their acceptable use agreement, including our use of Google apps. And I started testing out Google Classroom in the past couple weeks with my period 3-6 class, and I decided to do a kind of flip the classroom assignment with them. First, I'll show you a little bit about how Google Classroom works, and then I will show you the assignment that I gave my students. This is essentially the homepage for my period 3-6 class. As you can see, it's a stream similar to a news feed in Facebook. So everything's in chronological order with the most recent post at the top. Assignments tend to get buried because any comment can come after them. So there's a call-out box on the left with the due dates and the title of the assignment. So if you click on the title of the assignment, right here, it will take you to the details page where you can see everything that needs to be done for the assignment and how to turn it in. In order to use Google Classroom, your district has to have a Google Schools account. So students have to have the right kind of email account. They can't just use any Gmail account to access Google Classroom. Once they sign up in Google Classroom, they I give them a code and they enter that in so that they can sign up for my specific class period. If they have other teachers who also are using Google Classroom, then on their homepage, like my previous page, it will show all of their different class periods, and then they would simply choose the box, just like I did, to come to the specific class. It also would show on that page a list of all the assignments that they have due for all of their classes with due dates, so that they can manage it without having to go into each different class period. The Students tab right here, it shows when they click on that, it shows each kid's email address and allows them to email each other or to comment, which would then come back to the stream. The About tab shows my email address, my classroom number, and it has a link to their Google Drive folder for this specific class period. This is the assignment details page for that assignment that I showed you on the previous page. So it was supposed to be due on October 30th. I assigned it on October 29th. And I had reviewed with the students really quickly how to get into the Google Doc and how to save it and how to make comments. However, 2/3 of the students in that class have never used Google Docs, and when they got home they couldn't remember how to make comments. So I called the computer lab the next day and made an appointment for November 3rd, which was the first open time that we could go, so that I could have them all in the room at one time and show them how to use, we'll have them practice using comments in Google Docs by themselves. So basically the assignment was that they were supposed to watch a YouTube video and, if necessary, read a chapter in Genesis so that they could understand what the different lines in the poem mean. And then they were making comments in Google Docs to explain what they had thought of, and then the next day we were going to have a discussion about what the poem meant and then write a 1 or 2 paragraph explanation of what the whole poem means. So we'll still be doing that, it's just delayed until after we can get into the lab to practice using comments in Google Docs. One of the flaws I discovered in trying to use Google Classroom is that even though it assigns a document to each student, or it says each student will get a copy of the document, it's not separate from the master document. So when the students make the comments, they're not just seeing their own comments, they're seeing any other comments that have been made by any of the other students, just like you normally would. Unfortunately, I wanted them to make their own comments without seeing anyone else's, so that when they had the discussion, they had already thought about the poem without being influenced by anyone before we discussed. So one of the other problems we had was having to save it or to make a copy of the document, which is possible only in the web browser. You can't do it if you're in the iOS app, and I'm assuming in the Android app either. So, and Google tends to freeze up a little bit. The Google apps tend to freeze up a little bit in the browser on iOS devices. A lot of my students are using iPhones or iPod touches to do their work at home. So I need to find a different way for them to be able to get those copies so that when they comment, it's not going to show up for each other. Anyway, the next window I'm going to show you is the assignment status, where you can see who has turned in the assignment and who has not. This is the assignment status window, and I have covered all the student names with stickers. But you can see that some students have turned in the assignment. It says done or not done. And when they turn the assignment in, if they don't have anything to upload or to share a link to, then they can simply click done, meaning they've turned the assignment in. I've used this for reading logs, which they turn in paper form. So after they put it in the tray, they pull out their phone and click done so that they remember that they've turned it in. I can also assign a grade on Google Classroom so they can see what their grade is. However, since I'm still putting it in my gradebook, which they also have online access to, I probably will not use that function simply because it's just extra time for something they already have access to. In my research, one of the sites that I came across is Curriki, and it is a curator of open educational resources. So what I included some screenshots that kind of show how you progress from the home page to finding some specific resources. I chose English Language Arts, and I chose middle school, or ages 11 through 13, or 11 through 14, and it took me to several resources that would fit what I'm doing. I actually found one further down that is for The Giver, which is the next novel that my students will be reading this year. And so I was excited to be able to find something that was useful and that I'm going to test out. So for Curriki, you register, and it you don't have to register, but if you register, then you get updates and other information about things that are new features on the site. The most exciting resource I found in my research is NoRedInk.com. And this is a website that teaches grammar and allows you to assign different grammar assignments and pretests and quizzes to your students. Unfortunately, most of those require a premium subscription, which apparently you can only get through a school or district subscription. So I have emailed No Red Ink, and I'm waiting to hear back to see how the subscriptions work, what different price things they offer, and how it works. I did, however, test it out, and I think I will be testing some. I'm using some of the assignments with my classes, the free ones that are available. So the next couple of screens will show some of what's available for free. This chart shows what's available for free and what's available with a premium subscription to NoRedInk.com, and as you can see, there's a huge difference. Most of the things that my 7th graders would need are the things that are only available with a premium subscription. The things that are available for everybody are really for they're more appropriate for younger kids. These two screenshots show how you can create an assignment, a quiz, or a pretest. So on the one on the right, you choose the number of questions you want. You have to give an assignment title. You tell which, you can choose which specific students you want to give this to. And again, this is like Google Classroom. There's a code that I blocked out on one of the previous screens that you give to students that will allow them to sign up for your classes so that you can assign them specific assignments. So the list of possible ones to use with the free subscription are darker, and the ones you have to have the premium subscription for have a little lock by them, and they're all faded out. So you can see most of these right here. Most of these right here are the ones that you cannot use. Right there. And then you look over on the left and it shows you which assignments you've created, and then you can look at the answer key, you can look at what it would look like for the students, and you can click on view results to see what the student scores were on the different assignments. These screenshots show some of the questions that for an assignment and how you would answer them on a tablet. I had actually tested this out on the computer, and on that one I think it had me type the word in or double click, but it functions slightly differently on a tablet. And the questions are geared towards student interests because students answer some questions or choose their interests, choose movies and books that they're interested in, and then the questions are based on those. Because I was the one taking the test and not a student, it doesn't show my results, but this is where I could check each student's individual results to see how well they did on the assignment, and then decide whether we were ready to go on for a quiz or a test, or if they needed more practice. This new colorful chart right over here allows me to look at each individual student's performance on individual grammar points. So I can look at word usage, specifically its versus its, or I can look at how they did with prepositions or how they're doing with plural nouns, and I can see who needs more help and who has already mastered the concept. So I theoretically could do this with a pretest and then choose which kids were ready to move on to different assignments or needed enrichment activities, and which students needed some specific instruction and more practice on the website. Besides being able to assign students practice work and create pretests and quizzes through NoReading, there's also a section with grammar rules where the students can review the rules and know what they need, so they know they get some instruction before they actually start practice. I was really excited to find this website because I've had difficulty finding any kind of language arts games or really any videos or anything that was already created that wasn't going to require me to kind of reinvent the wheel and create my own products so that I could flip my classroom. So to find this made me really happy. This is kind of like you would use this in a hybrid or blended classroom, so maybe the kids would spend 20 or 30 minutes working on this type of assignment, not necessarily grammar because that's a big chunk of your time to work on grammar, but if I had some kind of literary analysis assignments also, things that they would work on their own, and then we could work in different groups, whether it was groups that needed intervention or groups that needed enrichment. So I'm glad that I was able to find a couple of resources, and I'm hoping that in my continued search through more of the open educational resources that I will find more that will be applicable not only to language arts but to what I teach in my 7th grade classes. I created this presentation using the Explain Everything app, which is available for iOS, and I think it cost me $2.99. This app allows you to download from pretty much anywhere on the web, YouTube, Dropbox, Google Drive, all sorts of places, and then you can resize, turn, annotate, pretty much everything, and then animate, and that once you're finished, you can upload your presentation to, again, pretty much everything. That's how it's advertised. So I was really excited to find this because it was a lot easier to use than most of the other presentation creation apps, the screen capture, the other teaching apps. This one it has a pointer that I've used. I can mark it up like it has a dry erase marker. I can erase. I can put borders and draw frames. And overall, I'm really excited about this app because I think it will also help me to be able to flip my classroom along with all of the open educational resources. Thanks for watching my presentation, and hopefully we can get this to upload to YouTube.